Hey guys, Vince and Drew back with another video today, Power 5 Fanatics. Today we're going to bring you guys the SEC preview video. We did one earlier this week for the Big 12, and we kind of wanted to go over the three conferences that are planning on playing right now and kind of give you guys an overview. But also we wanted to look at their over-under win totals for the season and kind of give you guys an idea of what we think these teams might do. So we wanted to get started here. First of all, we did want to remind you guys that, this season is going to be like no other. So.
Yeah, it's a bizarro world that we're living in. And
yeah.
When we go over some of these teams, the over/under totals are just insane.
Yeah, and some of these games may not ever even get played. So keep that in mind if you are going to actually bet on these seasons that they got to get to a certain win total for you to win money. So definitely keep that in mind that this is very fluid and players are opting out here and there, or they're having to sit out because they get the virus or whatever. But we tried our best to kind of compile a good informative list of kind of who's coming back, who's returning, who's trying to opt out, and what we think they might do this season. So let's get started here.
We'll start with Alabama. Drew, they got quite a few returners, but they've got some key people that they're missing also, of course. Tua, of course, is gone. Mac Jones seems to be a very reliable replacement, though, at quarterback. And I don't know if they're going to just lose a whole lot of offensive power because they do have some other returners. Of course, they're
Najee Harris is coming back at running back. And they got some really, high-end players on the offensive line as well, like Alex Leatherwood. He's coming back.
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. So they definitely have some good firepower on offense. And then on defense, they're bringing back some players that we thought were going to play last year, like Dylan Moses and some other teams.
Josh McMillan's another linebacker returning.
Yeah, that's a good one too. So
of course they did lose a couple stud receivers without a doubt, Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs.
Yeah.
So that's going to hurt some, but it's going to give some opportunities for some of these other receivers like Waddle and Smith. All the games are pretty tough this year in the SEC because they're playing 10 games and it's against basically almost everybody else. Almost.
And it did kind of seem like the top end teams got a lot of the lower end teams on their schedule. So for some of these lower end teams, It's hard to fathom that some of these win totals are like 1, but they actually may not get there. So,
but back to Alabama, they're 8. I think they're going to go over, Drew.
Yeah.
My guess, they're going to win 9 games. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I'm not even sure if they're going to win the SEC, as normally they would be favored to do. They got a lot of offensive talent that they are going to miss. I'm talking about superstar talent, NFL caliber. There is definitely some reliable people that are going to be jumping in and replacing them.
Right.
Their defense, their defense might turn out to be better than last year.
Yeah.
In some ways, it was kind of a down year defensively for Alabama last year, at least for what they consider to be. An appropriate defense.
An Alabama level, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think on the over/under?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think they're going to go over the 8. I think that's pretty good little odd there. You look at their schedule; they got some tough games. They got to play Georgia, and of course, they always got their annual matchup with Auburn, LSU. They got A&M as well. So, and then they're going to play Tennessee, who I think is going to be better this year. But I think a lot of this comes down to how good can the potential quarterback Bryce Young be? Because right now it's him and Mac Jones that are competing at that quarterback spot. And
I think Mac Jones is going to be hard to beat out.
I think with the lack of spring, it's going to be hard to beat out Mac Jones just because, whenever you're not getting reps as a freshman and you're not instilling the offense and understanding the offense and stuff, it's going to be hard to unseat a guy who has – thrown for over 400 yards against Auburn and some different teams. So I think they've got a really good opportunity this year to really be good, So I'm going to go over with them as well.
Moving on to Arkansas, they got a new coach, Sam Pittman. Obviously, they've been struggling the last few years badly. but they're hoping with a new coach, new offense coordinator, Kendall Briles, new defense coordinator Barry Odom, that maybe they're going to. This will be the trajectory that they're wanting upwards. They've been about as low as you can possibly get, Drew.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember Arkansas, their football program being in the position it's in now. They're losing
Nick Starkel.
Yeah, Nick Starkel, the quarterback.
Yeah, so but they're bringing in Felipe Franks, who is the Florida transfer, and we saw a little bit of Felipe Franks last year. He played in some games for Florida, but then pretty early, I think he got hurt, and Kyle Trask came in and kind of took over the spot. So I think Felipe Franks could be an upgrade for this team.
They're losing 3 defenders also.
Yeah.
It's just their talent level is just not there with some of the premier SEC programs right now. And until that changes a little bit, I think they are going to struggle. This is one of those where the over-under is just I've never seen over-unders like this. It's so ridiculous. 1.5, and the sad thing is I think they're going to go under. I think they might win one game if they're lucky. And what are you thinking on the over-under?
Yeah, I think give Sam Pittman, Barry Odom, and Kendall Briles another season. I think that they're in a good spot, Arkansas is, because I think that he brought in some really good coordinators. I mean, you're talking top-of-the-line coordinators for a place like Arkansas. But to have a first season like they have, where they probably hadn't even met their team until maybe, I don't know, pretty far into the year, because they got shut off so early. They didn't have a spring.
And new systems is going to be tough.
And like Vince said, they are bringing back a pretty talented team, but it's not talented enough, in my opinion, to play the type of schedule that they're going to have to play.
Right.
I mean, they have to play everyone. So yeah, I'm going to go under on Arkansas as well.
Moving on to another contender, or expected contender, Auburn. This is Auburn this year, Drew. They've got quite a few players coming back. Obviously, Bo Nix is going to be looking to expand on his freshman year last year.
A couple receivers are coming back.
DJ Williams is back.
Seth Williams, Schwartz. Yeah.
They basically got all the Williams receivers in the SEC apparently.
And I think they'll have a pretty good defense as well. They are losing Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson though, and those are going to be 2 really big losses there on the defensive line. But it seems like Auburn's pretty good about kind of reloading there. So I think that they could be pretty good.
The over-under on Auburn this year is 6.5, which I think is a little bit low. I got them going over. I think they're one of those teams that it's kind of hard to get a gauge on. They could be like really good, because I think that the very high end of the SEC is changed a little bit. Alabama's shown a few little chinks in the armor. We'll get to LSU here in a little bit, and maybe some of the challenges they got. So, you got a team like Auburn that can, make a move here or there and actually challenge for the SEC West.
Right.
So, I think they'll definitely be over 6.5 games. Where that's at, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it really hurts these teams not playing any non-conference, because typically you'd have like a patsy type of game where you can at least just hang your hat
usually
on
got
a few
more than
wins.
one.
And even games that you can kind of condition your bodies to playing, on a weekly schedule. This year, you're just getting thrown into the fire. They do have to play Kentucky week 1. I believe it's Kentucky. And that's an upset alert type of game, but I have them going over as well. I think that, like most Gus Malzahn type of years, it seems like the even years have kind of been the years where they, do pretty well. So we'll see. But I think they go over as well.
Moving on to Florida, this I don't think you should call them a dark horse, because I'd say actually they're one of the favorites, but I think they get forgotten about a lot. And honestly, Drew, I think they're one of the best teams in the SEC this year. Kyle Trask coming back, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Most of the O-line's back. I just really think their offense is going to be very productive this year, and maybe the best offense in the SEC. In my opinion, Kyle Trask probably is the best quarterback in the SEC. Obviously, they got a lot of tough games. I mean, they're playing at Texas A&M.
Always the Georgia game.
Yeah, they always got the Georgia game. Over under on Florida 7.5. I think this is one of the cinches. I think they definitely go over.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised at all if Florida makes a run at the title. I'm talking about. I think they will win the East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're onto something with Florida's offense there. I agree that I think that they're going to have the best offense in the SEC, and they're bringing back a ton of talent. And I just maybe I just really love this Florida team, but I have a really good feeling about this team. I like Dan Mullen. I think that he is putting them in a great position to really kind of take the next step, because this past couple years they've been really good, but it seems like Georgia's kind of cast a shadow over their program. But I think Florida will beat Georgia this year. I think that there's a chance Florida could maybe just be like a one-loss type of team. We'll see. I mean, it could go the complete opposite way.
Speaking of Georgia, that's who we'll talk about next. It's perfect the way this worked out, because Georgia originally seemed like definitely the favorites in the East. They've had the news lately. Quarterback Jamie Newman apparently has opted out. Mm-hmm. Some of the returners they do have, though, they do have some pretty good offensive returners. George Pickens, the wide receiver, Zamir White, the running back.
Right.
They've got 3 great defenders coming back. Mm-hmm. Devontae White, defensive tackle. Then they got 2 linebackers coming back. So mm-hmm. I think their defense is going to be solid again. But having Newman not there is going to be an issue. They never have exactly been the offensive juggernaut in the SEC. You know, offense seems to be it seems like things have changed a lot in the last couple of years, where teams are becoming more, they have more offense is what I'm trying to get at. And the defense maybe less so, but Georgia seems to be more old school, where, you know, they try to beat you 21-17 and not 42-38.
Yeah.
And I just don't, I think they're going to struggle a little bit on offense this year.
Yeah, when we talked about Florida potentially having the best offense in the SEC, I think Georgia's going to have the best defense, and I think Georgia is going to have the best defense in the.
I would agree with that.
I mean, they are bringing back absolute studs on the defense, but I'm also going to go under, and the reason I say that is they have kind of an awkward over/under. It's 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5.
So that means to go over, they got to only lose a game. And they got to play Alabama,
I just
Auburn.
don't think they can do it.
They got to play Florida.
Originally, I was going to go over on them, but with Newman out, I'm going to have to go under. I think 8 wins is very reasonable for them.
And I think it's a good season considering who they have to play. I mean, they don't typically have to play in Alabama, but they do. So I'm going to also go under on them, but I think that they could be very special this year. And it could have been a really special year if Jamie Newman decided to stick with it. But, you know, they're going to have to probably replace him with either JT Daniels or Dewan Mathis. So we'll see what happens there. But they're going to be an interesting team to watch coming up.
Moving on to Kentucky, they lost their quarterback, Lynn Bowden. So there's going to be a quarterback battle between Terry Wilson and Joey Gatewood. The offensive line, they lost 1 offensive lineman. They're expected to have
which I think they're going to have an awesome offensive line this year.
They did lose some defenders. About half their defense is gone. 5 defenders. You know, they're in the kind of in the middle of the pack. Kentucky, they have been, last 2 or 3 years, and which. You know,
they're kind of like the Iowa State of the SEC. They got a really good coach. They're kind of one of those scrappy teams that you don't want to have to play, to be honest with you, because they could beat you. You know, they beat Florida on their turf.
And that's why their over/under is right in the middle at 5. I actually have them going under. Drew disagrees. You got them going over, Drew?
Yeah. I do.
Moving on to LSU. This is one of probably the worst. The worst situation of a team losing so many key players. I think 33 players total are off the roster from last year. Almost the entire offense and defense.
Team. I mean, and when you start talking about some of these key players.
Of course, that's why they won the national title, because they had so much talent, but it's totally ridiculous, the number of players that are gone now. Of course, how many were drafted last year?
They had about 14 draft picks, but the thing is, I mean, even with that, they were going to bring back some solid pieces even still, and they still are. But, you know, they had Jamar Chase, who was probably the preseason Blitnikoff type of guy at receiver who's opted out. And then recently they had Tyler Shelvin, who is one of their stud defensive tackles, opt out. So it's just they're kind of losing pieces.
It's definitely going to be a rebuilding year, I think, for LSU.
And getting 2 new coordinators as well, losing Joe Brady
right.
and
new
then,
systems, and
Dave
since
Aranda.
there's no preseason games, if you want to call them that, this year. It's going to be. I think it's going to be tough for LSU, and it's reflected. Las Vegas has their over/under at 7. I actually think they're going to be under. I mean, I just don't see how in the world they're going to win 8 games this year. Just with the games they got coming up and the learning curve they're going to be having. I mean, you know, this could be one of those years, you know, where they start off like 2-2 or something. So, I mean, anyways, you know. That's what happens, though. When you know you win the national title, had arguably one of the greatest teams of all time. I got them going under. Drew does also. Mississippi State, new coach Mike Leach, transfer from Stanford. KJ Costello is expected to be the starter quarterback. And knowing Mike Leach, he'll probably be one of the statistical leaders in the nation at quarterback. They're bringing back one of their top running backs, Kylan Hill. They are losing 7 on defense, so going to be a little bit of a weak spot there because that's been kind of their calling card here the last 2 or 3 years. Their defensive line's always been good. Actually, it looks like it's turned into a typical Mike Leach team. They probably are going to. Well, they will score some points. I'll just say that, and they may be giving up some points too. Over under is 4. I think they will go over. Drew, I believe you got them going under. I just think Mike Leach is going to get enough out of the kid from Stanford, Costello, and the offensive talent that he has. I think they're going to get enough done to beat maybe some of the teams that are more on their level and get 5 wins. I mean, I think they're going to go 5-5.
Yeah, this, you know, our whole thing here was we were trying to, like, pick an over or an under. I probably would have pushed or not even bet on this one because I think 4 is the actual number that they'll probably win because I do think that they'll be very explosive on offense. I just look at their schedule. I mean, that's a lot of this is they got 10 games they got to play, and a lot of the upper-end teams play a lot of the lower half teams, and I'm not trying to call Mississippi State a lower half team necessarily, but when you have to play LSU to begin the season, they're always going to play Alabama. I think A&M's going to be better this year. Auburn, I mean, it's just you got to try to find the wins where you can. I think 4 is very doable, but I just couldn't go with 5. So
moving on to Missouri, got a new coach, Coach Drinkwitz, losing Kelly Bryant, the quarterback. They lost their tight end, Albert.
I can't even pronounce his last name. He's off in the NFL now.
Returning most of the defense. They do have their running back Larry Roundtree back. This is one of those teams where it's got the over under just makes you do a double take at 2.5. And as sad as it is, Drew, I'm picking them to go under. I just don't know if they can win more than 2 games. I mean, they got Bama at home first game. They're at Tennessee. You know, that would be a game you would think they would have a shot of winning. It's on the road, though. At LSU, at Florida, Georgia at home. I just don't know how this adds up to much for the Tigers this year.
Yeah.
You got them going under also.
Yeah, I mean, this is a heck of a year to be a first. I mean, Drinkowitz has been a head coach. He was a coach at Appalachian State, but this is his first time to be a Power 5 coach.
I think the good thing for these new coaches, they're going to get a reset or a
this is
they're going to get a hall pass on some of the
stuff. For sure.
If they end up with an 0-10 season, I think they're going to let them reset.
I mean, if you're like a guy like Will Muschamp with South Carolina and you go 0-10, you know that might be.
But the new guys with new systems and just the whole thing.
The whole economy part about it too, where these teams are trying to cut where they can too. I mean, I think a lot of these coaches are going to get a free year, and just. You know, but still, this, you know, we're talking 2.5. They got to get to 3 wins. again, I just
Going to be hard to do.
I don't really see it.
Speaking of new coaches, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, so everybody's excited. It seems like Mississippi is going to be the center of the offensive universe this year.
Right.
There is a battle between is it John Reese, Plumlee,
Yeah, John
and
Rise, I think Rise Plumlee.
and Matt Corral.
Yeah.
As far as the quarterbacks, I'm not quite sure how that's going. They have lost more than half their defense, so 6 losses there. So probably going to struggle some on D. This is kind of like a broken record. They seem to be a lot like Mississippi State could be. Their over/under's 4. Actually got them going over. So I think Lane Kiffin's experienced enough. He's been at enough places. Turning around programs quickly. I think he's going to get to 5 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I picked under here, but the more I think about it, when you're comparing Ole Miss and Mississippi State, both got new coaches.
They both got about the same over/under.
They both are going to have, pretty good quarterbacks, I think, because I'm hearing Matt Corral is kind of the guy right now. Earlier in the season, it was John Rise Plumlee who was kind of leading, so we'll see how that shakes out. But the whole over/under at 4 could come down to that game against Mississippi State and Ole Miss. One of those teams might get to 5 wins off of that.
That's probably what it's going to be.
So it just kind of depends. I mean, I'm picking under on both of them. Just it's same story. They both. I mean, it's just the schedule. I mean, you got to try to find wins where you can when you're talking these numbers and going overs.
Another team that's going to struggle to get wins this year looks like South Carolina. They do return Helinski, their quarterback. They lost their running back, both their running backs, Feaster and Deason.
Yeah.
They also lost Brian Edwards, the receiver. They've lost 4 defenders. So having their quarterback Helinski back is definitely a positive. It's just it looks like he may not have a whole lot of help.
Right.
And again, just looking at their schedule, I mean Auburn at home, that's going to be a tough one. At Florida, at LSU, A&M at home, Georgia at home.
Yeah.
It's like murder's row here. I think the 3.5 is the over/under, which really surprised me. You would think South Carolina would actually maybe have at least as good as Mississippi or Ole Miss on the over/under, but I think you're going under. It's crazy. I mean, when you're thinking about teams, well, all they got to do is win 2 or 3 or 4 games, but it's hard to add up. And there's going to be one team on here that's going to surprise a lot of people, but we both have them going under. Moving more to the top of the SEC this year, they could be a dark horse to win the SEC. Texas A&M, they're returning most of their team. Kellen Mond, of course, is back. Wide receiver, Osbon?
Jamon Osbon.
Yeah, Spiller, their running back.
Right.
They got quite a few of their defenders back also.
I think they have most of their team coming back. They got Weidermeyer at tight end coming back.
I like A&M a lot this year, and I think they're finally going to put the pieces together. Jimbo, I got them going over with I kind of put them in the same category as Florida, Drew, where I wouldn't call them a dark horse because obviously they're loaded, but they're not exactly somebody you're just going to be announcing as your SEC champ. And I'm not saying that, but I think they're definitely going to be they're going to put their hand up and be counted, and they might surprise some people.
Yeah, I think this is Jimbo's 3rd season, I believe. Now
you got them going under though, so
I think did I have them going under?
Yeah, you do have them going under. You want to change
that?
You can change it right now in the video.
Here's the thing. I think that they're going to win 7 games, and that is their number.
But if you had to bet it,
if I'm going to bet it, because they do have to play.
I think I'm going to make him change. I think he's going to go over now.
At Alabama, Florida at home, Auburn on the road, LSU. I think they're going to beat LSU. And I think they're going to beat Auburn too. So I think I originally went with over on them, and I'm going to stick with over. I think they'll.
Okay.
I think that they could. I
knew
them
I'd talk
getting
him
to 8
into
wins more than I could see them dropping to 6, if that makes sense. So.
Rounding out the SEC, Tennessee. There's been some disappointment there. I wouldn't put it on the level as Arkansas's disappointment. They're not there, but they've been trending the wrong way. This year, I think maybe the fan base, I think, is expecting them to finally make a move the other direction. They did return their quarterback, Jarrett
Garantano.
They did lose 3 defenders, 2 offensive linemen, but they got some players coming back.
Ty Chandler, Henry Toa.
Hopefully the days of losing to Georgia State at home, well, they don't have to play Georgia State, so they don't have to worry about that. But they've just been a very big disappointment to the Volunteer faithful lately. I know they're hoping this is the year where they take a step forward, not winning, obviously, the SEC. I don't think anybody's figuring that, but, trying to get to, 7, 8, 9 wins if it's possible. The over-under's 5. I got them going under, though. I don't think this is actually going to be the year, in my opinion. Again, there's not the wins there. They don't play Georgia State. They're not playing some of these other ones, and it's just going to be hard, Drew. To me, I think they're, we're talking 4, 5 wins maybe.
Yeah. They started trending in the right direction last year.
They did.
Because they honestly had probably the absolute most nightmare beginning of a season that you could.
No joke.
Losing to Georgia Southern, and then next week losing to BYU.
Right.
And BYU is not a team that you necessarily scoff at.
But you got them going under, too.
Yeah, I do. And the reason for that, I think they're going to lose a lot at their wide receiver position because they had some very talented players at wide receiver.
The thing they got playing in their favor, 3 of their toughest games, A&M, Florida, and Alabama, they do play in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's just murderer's row. I mean, for these teams, it's like there's no patsies on the schedule. There's no gimmies. It's just like week to week. It's going to be a strange season, the SEC. Finishing out Vanderbilt, this may be the strangest. We kept the strangest for last. I don't know if this has ever happened in the history of college football or actually any football at any level. Las Vegas has the over-under at 1.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is, I got them under. I do not think Vanderbilt can win a game this year, Drew. I mean, their offensive line's been decimated from opt-outs. 3 of their offensive linemen opted out.
And I think they lost another.
And they lost a linebacker, and their kicker opted out, too. So it's like opt-out.
Losing Keyshawn Vaughn, their star running back. I think they lost Kalijah Lipscomb, who was their star wide receiver.
It's like opt-out university
and
or
then
something.
They're losing Riley Neal, who's their quarterback, too. I think they see pretty good upside with Ken Sills, who I think is probably going to be their quarterback, but my God,
I just don't see him winning a game.
Yeah, I mean,
to go over, they're going to have to win 2. So
right.
I mean that's the problem. That's why I got them going under.
And they could. It's just when you look at these schedules, man. I mean, it's pretty black and white in my opinion. It's like you got the teams that you just think are going to be pretty good, and then you got the teams that are going to have to play those teams you think are really good. So who's going to win them? Well, you probably think the better team's going to win in most cases. So.
It's going to be a strange SEC season is all I can say. Again, I've never seen these over-unders like this. It's just bizarre. And so it's going to be fun. Anyways, guys, hey, we appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. I guess we'll be talking to you later.
Thanks, guys.